Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're taking a look at every Twisted Metal ranked. For this list, we'll be looking at every Twisted Metal game from worst to best. Which Twisted Metal game is your favorite? Which one has the best vehicles and characters? Share us your thoughts down in the comments below, and I will see you there. I love Twisted Metal, man. I'm so glad we're doing this video.
Before we begin, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
Number 8, Twisted Metal 3. Now, we aren't going to exaggerate and say, bah, Twisted Metal 3 is a god-awful game, and everyone should be ashamed if they like it, and they need to go sit in a corner, bah. No. For a standard vehicular combat game, it's okay. The controls aren't up to snuff, the physics are all over the place, and the level design is questionable at times. And that's just saying it generously. But the game's biggest crime is how it fails to understand the tone and attitude of the previous Twisted Metals. Instead of the grit, the attitude, and explosive mayhem, it tried turning the series into something that was way more cartoony and a little more kid-friendly. The inclusion of Rob Zombie's music fit with the series, but that's really the only good thing this game had going for it. We try not to be so hard on TM3, given developer 989 Studios was only given 8 months to make the game, but honestly, Twisted Metal 3 just ain't it. Number 7, Twisted Metal Small Brawl. The point of spin-offs is usually to explore ideas that might evolve a series or even spawn a brand new series. In the case of Small Brawl, neither was accomplished. Much like the 989 games, it completely missed the mark on what made the original games marvelous, and this came from Incognito Entertainment, the same people who made another Twisted Metal just months prior to this one. We can forgive this change from psychopaths to playground troublemakers and delinquents had everything else in the game been somewhat decent. The speed and combat are noticeably slower compared to previous entries, and the visuals are just abysmal for a game that launched this late into the PS1's lifespan. Simply put, this was not the Twisted Metal that anybody wanted. Number 6, Twisted Metal 1995. Pitchforks down, people. We're not saying the first Twisted Metal is abhorrent in any way. Considering how revolutionary it was back then in terms of giving us an experience unlike any other, it's a fantastic title and served as a solid first step in Sony's video game venture back in 1995. But that's the thing. It was good for 1995. Today, the first Twisted Metal has not aged all that well, and we're not just talking about the controls. There are times where the game feels like it is out to make your life miserable, even on the easiest difficulty. Really, the AI pulls some whacked out nonsense, man. In other words, the game does not ease you into the madness in the slightest. It was great for its time, but we would point anyone new to the franchise to other installments. This just wasn't it, man. This game is insanely difficult and for no good reason. Number 5, Twisted Metal 4. Yes, it is odd that we would put TM4 over the original, but admittedly, TM4 showed that 989 Studios could make a solid vehicular combat game. Even though they were still leaning into the cartoon goofiness that was introduced in TM3, 989 took another crack at it and improved on a couple of things. First off, the level design was much more focused and creative, and it didn't feel like it was haphazardly cobbled together. Second, they spiffed the visuals up a notch, always a plus, and the controls were okay, but in addition to retaining Rob Zombie's music for the soundtrack, they went a step further and allowed players to create their very own vehicles. Granted, it was a bare-bones customization feature, but regardless, TM4 had some excellent ideas despite it straying a bit further away from the originals. The only reason it's not any higher than this, and we're being generous here, it's because the AI is awful. Number 4, Twisted Metal 2012. Much like TM4, the PS3 Twisted Metal came with a lot of unique ideas to bring the series forward. For the first time ever in the series, players could pilot an air vehicle, a helicopter dubbed Talon. The story mode was more focused and aimed to achieve a level of visual flair to match AAA games at the time, and the online multiplayer offered up new dishes for veterans as well as classic free-for-all deathmatch. Unfortunately, all of this ambition came at the expense of a few things. Much of the cast from previous titles were cut out, leaving only enough room for Sweet Tooth, Dollface, Mr. Grimm, Calypso, and the Preacher. They are key characters in the story, yes, but it would have been nice to see other characters like Agent Stone or Krista Sparks. Then there was the problem with the game's main attraction, Nuke Mode, being tied exclusively to online multiplayer. Basically, if you didn't have PlayStation Plus, you were missing out on half of the entire game. All of this isn't to say that Twisted Metal 2012 is a horrible game, and I wouldn't even call it, personally, a subpar game. I personally like Twisted Metal 2012. I think it's fun, I like the way that the AI is programmed, I like all the unique weapons and how specials have like 2 different forms. It's really cool, but really, number 4 is as high as it can get. Number 3, Twisted Metal 2. To this very day, Twisted Metal 2 remains to be one of the very best games to ever launch on the first PlayStation console. While retaining the core ideas of the original, TM2 improved with its visual fidelity, expanded the roster of characters and vehicles, incorporated character-specific endings, had the AI take a bit of a chill pill and balance the difficulty, though that is questionable in some circumstances depending on who you're playing as and what stage you're on. And it cranked up the mayhem even further in its creative level design. Plus, there were all kinds of neat secrets within the levels themselves. Launch a missile at the Statue of Liberty to change her wardrobe. Blow up the Eiffel Tower to create a whole other section of the level. Blast open the door of an Amazonian statue to find an underground passageway beneath the lava. This was what would set the precedent for future Twisted Metal games. Number 2, Twisted Metal Black. Twisted Metal Black is such a fantastic PlayStation 2 classic, and it boasted the most ambition we had seen from the franchise at this point. In a sense, this was Twisted Metal in full realization. It reintroduced the black comedy of the original games. It went a step further with its dark tones in each character's backstory and featured excellent voice acting and writing. Maps were larger in scale and held plenty of secrets for hidden passages and bonus pickups. And the gameplay was significantly faster than previous titles, making combat much more intense and hectic. And even though this is widely regarded as the hardest game in the franchise, there's actually something much more satisfying here compared to the difficulty of, say, the first game. As far as the cat and mouse pacing goes, this was when Twisted Metal exercised that philosophy most, and it did it with flying colors. There just wasn't anything more satisfying than coming out of a chase and, assaulting your attacker back and managing to blow them up in the process. Number 1, Twisted Metal Head On. For as much as we loved Black and Twisted Metal 2, Head On reigns supreme as the best in the franchise. We'll love Black for its unique take on the IP and how it revived the series' original identity. However, Head On was pure Twisted Metal with a modern lens, and it was a perfect fit for PlayStation Portable. Difficulty was scaled back significantly compared to Black, focusing more on providing a more arcade-like experience. Levels now contained minigames that tested your driving and shooting skills, and it rewarded you with unlockable vehicles and weapon upgrades to make your campaign smoother. Couple this with tasty music and a return to the comic book aesthetic from Twisted Metal 2, and you have what is the greatest Twisted Metal game in the franchise. And as if this game couldn't get any better, The 2008 PlayStation 2 port came with a plethora of goodies that showed the cancellation of the ill-fated Twisted Metal Harbor City, as well as a look back on the series as a whole with creators David Jaffe and Scott Campbell, as well as other folks who have contributed to the franchise's success. Really, it's a complete package that every Twisted Metal fan needs to have.
Check out these other great clips from MojoPlays, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.